Hey guys, welcome to this session of Bring Your Own Bold. As you guys might know from the live version of the event, we tried to do this on the day. Technical issues prevented us from getting through it, but here we are again. I'm so happy we are. Welcome, Aaron. How are you doing today?
Good, Dave. Good to see you again.
Awesome. Well, listen, let's dive straight into it. So this is all about motion design in the age of attention economy, but let's start with the crucial question, Aaron, which is why is motion so important to brands today?
Yeah, great question to start off with. So, motion design on its own is not really that important. What's really important is this idea of building attention capital. And just one of the best ways to do that is through motion design. So what is attention capital? First, we need to set the stage and we think about the attention economy. So in today's climate, as I see it, it's like this ruthless battleground where brands, businesses, and content creators are, trying to attract and fight for your limited attention. It's all about capturing and monopolizing your focus. There's many tests, science articles about this, and so like, when you think about your focus amidst the chaos of endless distractions, your attention is really like the currency of the future, right? It's not so much your actual money, but it's your attention. And every company wants a piece of it. It's not just about like what you pay for, it's about what you pay attention to. So in branding, we need to be really, really vigilant because you're the ultimate decision maker in this game. And it is a game. You've heard of growth marketing, right? You've heard of performance marketing. And in B2B, that's critical. So how you choose to spend your attention can shape the way different businesses and content is designed, promoted, and consumed. Attention capital. So now that you understand, attention economy, once you understand what that is as a brand, then you create attention capital. And this is this concept where we're essentially just measuring the value that you get from keeping someone's attention, right? It's not about clicks and likes. It's more about conversions. So you have to get them in the door before you can convert them, right? So it's the gold standard in the attention economy. Think of it as like a yardstick for economic and social returns that you can reap when you grab their attention and keep them engaged. And so that's where the real power and profit of in today's digital landscape is, I think. Go for it.
I was just going to say, I definitely agree with all of that. Absolutely. It couldn't be truer. Are there any brands that are doing it really well at the moment?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few brands that do it pretty well. I have a list here, and I had to write it down. There's so many of them I couldn't memorize it, but in alphabetical order, some brands that I admire that are doing motion well are Airbnb, Apple, of course, Frame.io. If you've seen their rebrand recently, it's incredible. Google's always coming up strong. Headspace has done a good job. IBM, of course. More like startup brands like Instacart, MailChimp, Meta, of course, another one with Apple and Google that have to do it well. Nike leading the pack by far. Pinterest recently came out with a new motion system from Dia. Beautiful. Ramp, smaller fintech, but they're really coming in strong.
Yeah, I love Ramp.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'd put Square in that category now. My former employer. Vivo, a smaller sort of like Vimeo competitor, do it really well. And Wise, also another smaller fintech, but really have come on strong. And and last but not least, we're working really hard to include Zapier into this impressive list. Got to also give a shout out to studios who are helping these agencies do motion well. Sometimes you have agencies that have the investment capital to create a team of motion designers in house, but a lot of the times you find that they partner with external creatives. So Algo, Athletics, Brand New School, Buck, Dia, Illo, Mouthwash, Studio Dunbar. Those are just a few. There's too many to name, really, but those are the few that stand out to me. And I know a lot of those folks, and so shout out to those teams as well.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I mean, Instacart Pinterest and Wise, the ones that really jumped out at me from recent times anyway, in terms of what you mentioned just there. I think they're all
they captured your attention.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, yeah, and Ramp as well, as I mentioned before. Just going back to one of the names you mentioned there as well, Square. I know that you mentioned that it was slightly biased that you put them in there, but I would disagree with that. I think they hold their own with any of the brands that you mentioned. And mainly that is because you led the creation of motion principles there at Square. And now you're doing the same with Zapier as well. So I just wondered if you could just tell us a little bit about first of all, what motion principles are, and then if you could talk me through the process of how you go about creating those motion principles.
Sure. So for me, it always starts with strategy. In the B2B space, it's just crucial to be really intentional and not try to push motion, pardon the pun, into a brand identity just for art's sake. There's certainly a place for that, but it's not going to land very well with the higher up exec stakeholders, right? So my advice is simply to be ruthlessly strategic. And how I found success at bringing strategy into motion principles is by identifying what's good and true about the brand and then elevating that and creating a story or a narrative through that lens. So every brand has brand values. Typically, every brand has a product. So you look at the product behaviors, and those can be a really nice way to clue in how the motion principles can come to life. And overall brand positioning, right? The brand positioning in market. If you've got a lot of competitors, how do you stand out? And so I can share a little bit about how we developed motion principles first with Square, but and then sort of dive into Zapier. But first, I want to just touch on kind of the benefits of motion principles real quick. So, you'll have to create a business case for something like this with your stakeholders and your manager, maybe, to get it done. And we all know as designers and creators that motion principles can help you tell stories effectively and really explain complex ideas with simplicity and create overall better user experiences. So the benefits, of motion principles are this idea of like accelerated market entry. So when it comes to creative projects, having those strong principles are really like a cheat code, and it helps you get your ideas to market faster and more effectively. A cohesive brand identity, crafting a unified look and feel through motion across customer touchpoints is just good business. It's how you build powerful, unforgettable brand messages that sticks. And then goes without saying, cost and time savings. If you're starting from scratch every single time and you're taking a per item strategy, it's going to show, and you're not going to have a cohesive brand identity, right? So if you do have these motion principles, like a motion guidelines or a brand guidelines, you're saving a lot of time and money. So, picture this: without motion principles, it's like hitting a brick wall in your studio's, sort of like content production. It's a money pit. It's a huge roadblock, and it's a cash drain, frankly. And so when you do all those three things, then you have this elevated brand reputation. When your design system is super clear, dialed in, well documented, it's actually a magnet for top talent. So then you can start to build that team internally and grow from there. So as far as like how we approached it at Square, I mentioned brand values, leaning into product behaviors, leveraging your overall brand positioning in market. With Square, it all started in about, I would say, mid-2020. I started in February 2020 and did an internal audit of the entire brand's identity system, and evaluated what was working and looked at identifying where we had room for improvement. And so we discovered that we really didn't have a clear point of view on how motion lives within the brand. There were some attempts to incorporate it into the visual language, but they were all one-offs. And so we lacked a strategic set of foundation principles and a shared understanding of why we needed to use motion in the first place. So it started with this philosophy on motion and how it relates to the Square brand. We partnered with a agency out of New York called Athletics, good friends of mine, shout out to them. And through that partnership, we really discovered, with a fresh perspective from the outside, we discovered that Square has this unique power to clear the way forward for sellers who are pursuing, their dreams in a world that frankly is full of obstacles. You know, running a business is really hard. And Square simply helps businesses as they move through the world. So we looked through how they're helping businesses move through the world, and we aligned early that the motion system needed to really evoke this sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say radical, but this sense of clearing the way. And it became more about the creation of space, clarity, and complexion reduction. So at a high level, without getting too technical, the aspects of Square's motion principles are based on what we call hard cuts. So when something, a scene ends and it cuts really fast and doesn't like extend out and it doesn't have, fade outs. So hard cuts and smooth transitions. So we use this idea of offset motion and shared momentum, everything moving from left to right typically to help carry the narrative through. We built 25 unique motion motion sequences at Square, and they can all be woven together independently and connect to each other like Lego blocks and work seamlessly. And we defined a core, set of 4 motion principles to really sort of become the pillars or the foundation of the entire system moving forward. I won't go into those too much, but I'll keep it really high level. So we have, and again, it's really important to remember it's about principles, not rules. Rules can really like stifle creativity, and we didn't want to say, okay, we're going to deliver these 25 unique motion sequences, but that's it. We can't build off of it. If we had rules, you kind of are limited. So we have principles. And principle 1 was weaving seamless stories. As I mentioned, every one of these 25 motion sequences can interlock and work with each other, move it to the front, move it to the back. It all works. And these are really just like logical and orderly type of narrative. The second one was moving onward, upward, and outward. And so the primary message here is this idea of positive momentum. Again, things moving from left to right, and very type-driven for the most part. And number 3 was opening the way for balanced journeys. It kind of sounds a little corny, to be honest, but this is where we're sort of making the complex more comprehensible. So it's like reveals and masks and this creation of space, things starting small, getting larger. And then the last was creating focus to bring clarity. And this is really just about highlighting the focal point or the main character of the story. So we do a lot of framing, and these typically end in a scene, so it kind of feels like a resolution. Now with Zapier, when I joined, which was about a year ago, they had just launched a pretty big rebrand, and it was very well received both by customers and within the creative industry at large. And we all know how rebrands can be very tricky to nail. And so that was one of the attractive, reasons that I joined. And we had this tagline through the rebrand that was really good. It said, set your work in motion. Which is super compelling for an automated, B2B SaaS company. So again, as I joined, a little bit of Groundhog Day, I ran an audit and identified the gaps that still needed to be addressed. Zapier's new foundation was super strong, but motion design was kind of an afterthought. There just wasn't enough time to bake into the rebrand to really think about motion design. And so that was where I sort of like pinpointed, that's where I want to go. And that's where I think I can create the most impact right away. So, we understood that Zapier sets your work in motion, but we really needed to discover what sets Zapier, the brand, in motion. So partnering again with athletics, it was another collab that has just wrapped up, and we're really proud of it. So we decided to focus less about process and more about outcomes. So when you visualize as a workflow in Zapier, it's very kind of like wireframing. It's very much like if this, then that, logical if-thens, right? But we kind of have been whispering about the customer benefits. So we hear customers saying things like, Zapier feels like magic. They're literally tweeting about the brand, saying things like, Zapier is so cool, it makes me feel like a damn wizard. And it's basically unsolicited free advertising. So we take a lot of these customer tweets and align it to a product truth. And then we sort of think about how we can elevate those customer benefits. And so the overall system was rooted in this theme of clarity. Clarity doesn't mean the absence of obstruction. It actually describes the presence of something that that was there. You just didn't know it was there. But Zapier is that ingredient to help you understand that. And those things tend to be something really important that helps people run their business with Zapier. So we were able to create 15 unique motion sequences, and it's a mix of like brand marketing and product marketing, because our product is a little bit technical and complex in the back end as you're building these Zap workflows. And so we wanted to sort of like free up that complexity and reduce the complexity and show people in a really simple way how the product works and behaves. And all of these, again, can be woven together to create a larger narrative.
Nice. Yeah. And I've seen some early bits and pieces already, which look absolutely amazing, by the way. It's a really, really good start for me, but I know there's so much more to come. By the way, for anyone, yeah, awesome. Absolutely. I love the pieces that you just released with Buck as well. Those unique animation styles that have come through that look really, really cool. So yeah, hats off to you guys for all the work you're doing so far. By the way, if anyone wants to check out the story of Zapier's rebrand, it is quite a fascinating one. We did a podcast with Michael Jeter, formerly of Zapier's brand studio. I had a podcast called The CHANGEMAKERS, so do go and check that out if you get a moment. It's on Spotify, Apple, everywhere. So do check that out. I just wanted to touch on something you've spoken about there, which is working with agencies and studios. I know that obviously, your brand studio has in-house motion specialists in there as well. You like to work as a team internally on this kind of stuff as well. So I just wonder what the dynamic is in terms of working with agencies, working in-house, who does what how that kind of whole thing kind of weaves together nicely.
Absolutely. Great question. And this is where I think it really is important to maintain strong relationships and your network and continue to grow it. I've been in the game for about almost 2 decades now. And as such, I've created a lot of, connections and friendships and some of those external creative partners that I work with, we work with them again and again. So shout out to like Athletics, Mouthwash, Brand New School. They're all great in their own regard. So for the record, I am not a motion designer, big surprise. I have this sort of analogy that I have more of like this Rick Rubin type of mindset when it comes to motion design. If you've seen his 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper, he asks him, do you play instruments? And Rick Rubin says, barely. And do you know how to work a soundboard? No, I have no technical ability and I know nothing about how to make music. I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I'm decisive about what I like and what I don't like. And then finally, Anderson Cooper finally asked, so what are you being paid for? And his last line was, the confidence I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel has proven helpful for artists. So I can sort of relate to Rick Rubin quite a bit.
You're the Rick Rubin of motion.
Exactly. So with in-house brand teams, it's actually pretty rare that you'll find a dedicated team of motion designers, let alone an individual contributor who's just a motion designer who's like sole day-to-day is dedicated to making motion-based content. It's a real shame because, in my experience, they will always have an active presence in the company and be completely full, have a full plate of projects on their hands, from the brand team to the product marketing team on the web, social video and film, explainer videos, tutorials, cultural initiatives, brand campaigns, on and on and on. I digress. Motion design needs to be, more prioritized on in-house brand teams. So if that's one takeaway that I can leave you with is that would be it. That said, when given a healthy budget and trust from leadership to use that budget wisely, I found no better investment than choosing to partner with an external agency who has a track record of impactful motion work across a wide variety of clients. So the things I look for in a motion partner, beyond just having some sort of personal connection, is a portfolio of motion that works. So how do they solve a business need through motion? Was it purely experimental, kinetic motion work that looks great on a reel and on Instagram in your feed, but it isn't really practical from a brand and product marketing standpoint? Really important. Have they worked with bigger tech brands? If they've worked with Nike, Google, Metas of the world, that's great because it signals that they know how to manage a massive layer cake of stakeholders. But also on the inverse of that, have they worked with smaller innovation startups? So these projects typically are the ones that yield the most interesting results and unique results when you work with more startups. because you have kind of like a blank canvas to start with, because typically there is no motion to speak of. And then lastly, do they have a technical director, someone who might have started out as a creative coder and through the experimentation with technology, they've evolved into this sort of technical leader who might have even developed an entirely new business unit for the agency. So those are like the main things that I look for. And yeah, so and I don't know if you know if that is everything, but that's the sort of the primary elements that I look for.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to move the conversation a little bit to custom tools, because this is something you and I have spoken about a little bit. I know you feel that there are certain tools out there that really help democratize motion design. But just wonder for our audience what tools we're kind of talking about here, and also really what's the benefit of that kind of approach?
So I'm really bullish on this one, Dave. If anyone has read my musings on Twitter or LinkedIn, you'll see that I've really advocated for custom tooling when it comes to motion design. And I have to, sort of address like the main inspiration for this was the design tool that I saw Mitch and Meg from Dia create for Squarespace back in 2018. It was really more based on kinetic typography, and everything sort of like was in the shape of a square or started as a square and like shifted and became something else. It was quite magical. So for those that don't know Dia, they're an incredibly talented type design agency who really specialize in motion design as branding, and kinetic motion design and building custom motion tooling is kind of their key differentiators. It's their secret sauce. So while at Square, during the motion design process, we already knew we had to follow up this project to make a tool, because we already understood that not everybody is a master at After Effects. So we asked ourselves, well, what if we build our own motion tool? So this was a fast follow to publishing and socializing in the new motion system at Square. We set some goals for the tool itself. What should it look like, right? Would we be creating a brand new user interface that no one has seen before at Square, or would we sort of rely on Square's UI language, which we did? How would people use it? Is it just going to be for making funny memes to post on Slack, or is it going to be actual business use cases, which the latter is more important? And who is the intended audience? We recognize that there's going to be certain levels of folks, but we wanted to identify the teams that would get the most ROI out of the tool itself. It's important to like think about how this tool could create speed to market, create efficiencies and all that. And then how could we scale it for all skill levels? So we wanted this to be really low entry point, low barrier to entry, make sure anybody who could basically post to TikTok or Instagram or any of those social platforms, whether it's posting an image or posting a video, could use this tool. And that was really important. But let me tell you, like, crafting a user experience that allowed for lightning fast motion prototyping across all the Square creative teams and beyond was not easy. But we did it. And in the spirit of Square's simplicity and the fact that this tool was sort of like an automated tool in and of itself, we gave it a name, and its name is Auto. It seemed very fitting. And so under the hood, I'm not going to get too deep here because I don't know how technical our audience is, but under the hood, it really packs some serious punch. So from a tech standpoint, we partnered with the Lex team to build a modular, scalable framework. This means that the tool can keep evolving even after it's in our hands. And Square's engineers can tweak, maintain, and extend and build upon it for future use cases. But the real game changer is that Auto lets you save motion files as JSONs. So if anyone's familiar with Airbnb and Lottie and what they did, it's the same sort of approach. It's a JSON file is essentially just code. So I can, there's a lot of benefits. You might ask, like, well, what are the benefits? It means basically you can save and share editable motion files and you can fine tune those files without ever needing to wrangle with an editor or dive into After Effects. And having these working files at your fingertips makes the entire process so smooth. It's incredible. So especially when you're working remote, I can create something, send it to you, Dave. If you love it, but you want to make some tweaks, it's your file now. It doesn't affect my file on my local machine. So, yeah, and then it's got all of Square's stylistic design elements sort of preloaded. So the font family, the product UI, the core color palette, photography and video assets, it's all ready to roll. And within it, there's little hints and clear guidelines for copywriting right there in the tool. So when you're using it, you can't mess it up unless you import content that's not safe for work or something. It's literally this like on-brand motion design tool that screams Square from the rooftops. So yeah, we set out to empower every single person at the company to unleash their sort of inner creator, if you will. So yeah, it's a really important part of I think today's climate with this idea that budgets are tight. We have to hear messages like do more with less, and so this is one way we can invest in something that will have long-lasting effects.
That was just so this is a pre-record, obviously, because we're doing the second time around. So I feel like I can spring a question or two on you. I just wanted to, and actually it touches on what you've literally just said there. I think our audience would be really interested to know because obviously this was I suppose this was a kind of a one-off project in a way that might not have had budget attached to it straight away. I just wondered what was the business case that you built for this particular custom tool or this set of custom tools that allowed you to go ahead and get the sign off for the budget for this? Because obviously, I can kind of sense what it might be, but it'd be really good just to get that clarity if others are thinking the same thing.
Yeah, great question. And I'll give you some like really tangible ways that if anyone's interested in doing something like this on how to think about it. So designers might be selfish and they might already understand the benefits, but we have to do a lot of explaining, rightfully so, to folks that are helping us make this happen financially. And so the best way to go about doing that is asking around, talking to people, other teams, ICs, leads, and saying, hey, here's an idea for a tool. Would you benefit from this and how? I'm sort of working on that right now at Zapier and giving like live demos of a sort of white labeled version of Auto, if you will. And it's proven really helpful because when you put it in front of teammates and they can see it, their synapses start going like, oh, I know how I can use this. We can create 10 ads a day or 5 ads a day at minimum. And so getting the teams that will be the end users involved in the process is how you can document and build a business case. If it can save time, money, resources, and also just have this empowering effect around the company, then you will have a lot easier time selling it in, depending on the price tag now. That's very important. But you can also think about it internally at teams. Oftentimes, annual budgets can be sort of like shared a little bit, or you can think of things as like brand experimentation and set aside a little bit of R&D funds for things like this. The business case should be ironclad and airtight with a lot of those, again, feedback from teams. And then once you do the direct sort of like demos and learning sessions with those teams, take all that, record a live demo, and you send out a survey on Google survey, and the entire company has the ability to opt in, take the survey, and ask provide answers on how they would use it. And so it's really important to make sure that you go to the source and that this isn't just seen as a passion project for a small brand studio team, and that it's actually for the entire company. The most important part, though, is that you have to identify how this will affect customers in a positive way, right? So it'll create efficiencies internally and save money for your in-house team. Great. Those are awesome. Check. But is it actually going to make any difference in the eyes of customers. And so when you think about having a cohesive brand identity and capturing people's attention in this age of the attention economy, when you can create more content, we can create consistent content, and its quality and its quantity, then you've hit the jackpot.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. One final question from me. I know you mentioned there that this is something that you're looking at kind of implementing in at Zapier as well. I just wondered to finish, where are you at the moment on I know you've touched on this already a little bit, but where are you at the moment on Zapier's kind of motion journey and what's coming next?
Absolutely. So right now, as I mentioned, we just wrapped up the motion principles, created guidelines for it, have shared that out externally. We do like monthly newsletters. We have a platform at Zapier that allows you to share updates on different projects as well that you feel are important. And then the immediate next step is stress testing the system with internal projects. So whether those projects are consumer facing or internal facing, they're great ways to sort of get behind the wheel and see how things are working. We did a sizzle reel, which you might have seen, which was meant to inspire, educate, and promote the fact that we have new motion principles at Zapier, and here's what it can look like. Got a lot of positive feedback. We're starting to use the motion principles for consumer-facing, like launch videos for different products that we're releasing. We saw it at Zap Connect, our annual conference that we do every year, where the motion principles played a key role in not only the identity, but the entire event day. And we're starting now also integrate it into brand campaign videos. So we're lucky to be able to do brand campaigns. We're shooting one next week in LA, actually. And I won't go into detail, but it will include some UI moments in there and how the motion principles play a role with showing our sort of abstracted UI in the brand campaign videos is going to be another way. And then to end, I'm literally right now building a business use case, doing live demos, and speaking with the folks that can help us get there to hopefully build. We call it build the robot is one of our principles at Zapier, and this is literally, if something doesn't exist, go out and make it. And so that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, I suppose with Zapier, with that being one of Zapier's principles and everything, and one of the things that Zapier really, really stands for, that probably eases the business case a little bit if you're trying to build the robot for the motion team. But I can definitely see how that's going to benefit you guys. Really can't wait to see the brand campaign as well. Yeah, super excited about that.
Yeah, that'll launch in January.
Awesome. Not too long. Fantastic. But listen, we did it. Second time around.
Take two. Virtual high five. I put cologne on today too. I was so like, I hope you can smell it through the airwaves.
Yeah, I wondered what that was. That's lovely. But listen, Aaron, thank you so much. On a serious note, really, really appreciate your time, both for the BYOB Live, which didn't quite work, but more importantly for today. Anybody who's interested in Zapier and Aaron, you should be, it's a fantastic journey that those guys are on. Go connect with Aaron on LinkedIn, go follow Zapier. There'll be so much more to come. And just want to finish with a big thank you to everyone who's watched, tuned in. Thank you so much. Aaron, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.